in some capacity. So it's like this. It just starts. I didn't even notice that it started. We've started talking. So, okay, I don't know. Hello, YouTube. Or so this week, this time, I can't really say week like I do it every week on a schedule or anything organized like that. Today, I'm joined by my friend Emerson Green, a fellow YouTuber and podcaster. And I want to say guitar player, because I think you play those cool, like, ethereal pieces of guitar music that intersperse the bits of your podcast. Is that right?
No, I wish it was, but it's a Chicanito. He has a YouTube channel that I've been following for a long time, but no, sadly that is not me. There's a YouTube short where I play guitar for like 5 seconds, but I think that's the only video that I've put out of me playing.
I should have checked with you before we went live.
I usually don't correct people because I would love for them to think that I'm playing that, but no, that is not me, sadly.
Oh well, I mean, yeah, I was going to say you're much better at the guitar than I am, but maybe you're not. Maybe you're rubbish at the guitar. I don't know. Anyway, this is not what people tuned in.
I'm good. I'm actually very good, but I'm not a Chicanito. He's like next level. He's like Polyphia level guitarist.
Yeah, right. Okay, good. What we're going to be talking about today is it's like a Christmas special or something. It's like a fun episode. We're gonna react to some video of 100% evidence that demons are definitely real, etc. After which point we'll presumably believe in demons. And then after that we'll answer Braxton Hunter's 10 questions for atheists, and we'll see where we get to. So I guess without further ado, I'm going to start sharing my screen, unless there was anything you wanted to say to, cue things up or whatever.
No, I think it's great. I mean, I'm happy to be here. I thought this was going to happen on my channel, so I had a whole intro for you as the Kalam destroyer, Alex Malpass, has joined us today. So I'll just throw that in there now. But yeah, we got to get to... I'm ready to have my mind changed and my mind blown on this spectacular evidence for demons that Hugh Ross is going to give us.
Physicist Hugh Ross.
Physicist.
Definitely a physicist, yeah. All right, good. I mean, okay, well, sorry, I'll come on your channel another time, and then you can do that intro that you just said. But for real. Yeah, okay. Cool, right, okay. Let's start with this, which is how I know demons are real. And this must be the greatest still of any YouTube video ever, I think. Jimmy Akin looking kind of skeptical. I would say kind of maybe borderline pissed off at this point. And Hugh Ross looks like he might be a demon. I feel like he's like one of those Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like Monster of the Weeks. Kind of looks like that. I think I've seen an episode where there's someone who looks like that. So yeah, right. Without any more glibness, I'm going to continue. Let's just crack on. I guess just say if you want me to pause it. It's only 5 minutes this, so maybe we can just listen to it. But if you really want me to pause it, just shout and I will.
Convinces you that demons are real? Is it primarily the Bible, or are some of these personal encounters that you've experienced? Is that the main source of?
The Bible is a primary source, because I can use science to demonstrate that the Bible is inspired and inerrant. So I trust.
I'm already checked out at this point. That's enough for me to know this is going to be completely insane. I mean, sorry, I can't resist just stopping it at that point. Yeah, that's too much already.
What it's got to say on these matters where I don't have the scientific tools. I do have a number of personal experiences, and I know a lot of people in my church and in my travels around the world, especially what I experienced in the Soviet Union, that persuades me, hey, there's actual evidence that we got here beyond what the Bible speaks about. But
would you mind articulating those experiences for me, if you're able to?
Yeah, I can do that. I remember speaking in a lecture hall in the Soviet Union. About a quarter of the people in the audience, the moment I walked into the room, they began screaming and yelling at me and screaming and claiming that Jesus was guilty of vile sexual immorality. Now, I've run into people who take the Lord's name in vain, but typically they stop at accusing Jesus of a grossly immoral behavior. But these individuals didn't do that. Moreover, they were yelling and screaming at the top of their lungs, preventing me even to speak. And what I noticed is the other people in the audience basically said, oh, they're all demon possessed. That's what's going on here. And I said, well, let me come back tomorrow. So I came back the next day, but I brought another scientist with me who was a follower of Jesus Christ. And I said, I just want you to be at the back of the room and just pray that God would silence the demons from interrupting and speaking. So we did that, and these people, and we're talking, like 60 of them, they were completely quiet throughout the whole of the lecture. And these other people in the audience, these physicists, were saying, we've never seen this happen. They're always yelling and screaming, and now they're quiet. And so that's when they became believers that, hey, there's something more powerful than the forces within these individuals. And I've seen experience.
Yeah, right.
This is where I had a couple of questions about this scenario, because that thing he said at the end where he's like, look, I was talking to the other physicists, and they said they're always doing this. And I'm like, wait, hang on. There's a permanent section of demonic hecklers at every physics lecture who are constantly like shouting and screaming and like going ape shit. And it's like someone prays and they just like calm down. But just like that one detail of like, they're always doing this. I've never seen them not do this. It's like, they should have been kicked out a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like, how is this a recurring issue for you? Like, okay, so just to recount though, the first bit of evidence is that he was being heckled in the Soviet Union. And apparently he heard, I don't know if they all said it in unison, or perhaps one person said that Jesus did immoral things. Kind of hazy on the details of that exactly, but 25% of the crowd accused Jesus of sexual immorality, together or perhaps individually. And they were always doing this at every physics lecture. It sounds like a very unruly kind of physics environment. I can't imagine they're getting a lot done. But then someone started praying and they all stopped. So this is piece of evidence number one for why I know. Well, technically number two, because the first one is the Bible says so. And then the second one is this, the hecklers, the demonic hecklers in the Soviet Union.
Yeah, it's very strange, isn't it? I was thinking, well, like, I mean, the Soviet Union is like kind of, I mean, it's the bogeyman often in these evangelical types, of it being like an example of atheism, like if atheism takes over the state and turns into Soviet Russia or whatever. So, I mean, maybe they don't like priests like him because it's this atheist superstate or whatever. It's kind of pretty good a priori explanation of why they didn't like this guy and why they were saying that, Jesus sucks this or whatever it was they were saying about Jesus, right? I don't know, but it seems to me like it's not necessarily going to be that blasphemous in atheist Soviet Russia. It might even be like expected or something if a priest turns up. I don't know.
Yeah, if you've got like a fanatically anti-religious, because even in his story, he's like, oh, it was only like a quarter of the crowd. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I could see like, yeah, some like extremely anti-religious atheist communists like just heckling a guy. It's like, oh, there's this Christian physicist who's talking about how the Earth is 6,000 years old. Yeah, they might heckle him. And then maybe they had their fun and didn't come back or something, or maybe they were like, are we really going to do this again? I have no idea, because like this story is not true. Like he's skating over lots of things. Like I'm sure he went to the Soviet Union and he was heckled. Yeah. Like I'm sure that happened. But like the detail of like, they're always doing this. They never stop doing this to everyone who speaks here.
Well, is it just to the priests or even to the secular physicist? If another physicist from the Soviet Union steps up, they would also get heckled in the same way? That doesn't sound very plausible, right?
That's what he said. I mean, like, if he didn't mean that, then I would need some clarification. But, like, it sounds like that's what he said. Like, that there's this permanent heckler section that are like influenced by demons, and then finally someone silenced these demons. They're saying like exorcist stuff, like you're saying. They finally knocked it off. But yeah, I don't think that Hugh Ross being heckled and like an ideologically atheist setting is really that weird, or like evidence of demonic activity.
That's right. In atheist Soviet Russia, getting a priest to do a talk at the physics lab is like waving a red flag in front of a bull, right? It's like the thing that would piss them off the most. But look, the other thing that I think is almost proves that it's not real is this massive loophole in the story, which is that the other physicists who are not demon possessed, they say, oh yeah, these guys, they're all demon possessed. So hold on a second. So are they Christian, these guys? Because if they're not Christian, they've just taken on board the demon part of the ontology, but not the rest of it. Like, they shouldn't think that if they're not Christians themselves. They should just be like, I don't know what's going on with these guys. They're crazy. But they're like, no, they're demon possessed. Like but the thing is, if they were Christian already, and they think, these guys are all demon possessed, why didn't they think to say a prayer or something? They would have thought of that. It doesn't take this American priest guy to be the first one to go, I know what to do. Get someone to sit at the back and pray. Like, if they buy the demon explanation, they should have the solution at hand, right? So it makes no sense that they wouldn't have tried that before.
Yeah, like, it's literally in the Bible. Like, Jesus casts out demons. Like, Jesus deals with demons all the time, and they're just like haplessly sitting there like, what do we do about the 25% of this lecture hall that's demon possessed? I don't know. I have no ideas. Like, this whole situation just sounds so suspicious to me. Like, I'm sure that he's like, glossing over details to like tell the story more quickly, but like the story does not make sense on the face. Like, there has to be more going on here, but more likely he was heckled, and then it's like, I'm almost envious that he lives in this like, Lord of the Rings ass world, or like this Dune world. Like, this is spiritual warfare constantly going on around him, when in reality he's just like getting heckled at a talk. People are like yelling at him. That's it.
And I like the fact that like the severity of the heckles was one of the things that made it seem like it was more. It was like, sometimes people heckle. Say Jesus was a douchebag, but they don't normally say that he was doing extreme sexual immorality. Like, go on Discord, dude. Like, yes, they are saying that. Like, you can find that all over the place, 24 hours a day if you want. I guess the other last thing I thought was that, given that it's Soviet Russia, it's not beyond the realms of imagination that if they were heckling the American guy, I mean, why is the American guy in there in the first place? Presumably he's been invited over. So somebody wants him to come over for some reason or another. And if that person is politically connected, overnight they could say, listen, I've just chatted to the, commissar or whatever. Don't fucking do that tomorrow when he gives another lecture. Like, I guess, did he come back for a second lecture? I don't know. But they could, political power, they could have just lent on them to make them all, even though they wanted to heckle, they knew that they would actually be sent to the gulag this time if they did that. So, like, in Soviet Russia, there's good explanations for why a bunch of physicists might not like the Christian physicists, because it's an atheist superstate, according to evangelical propaganda. And also, because it's an authoritarian state, you can imagine why, even though it doesn't seem, it seems surprising to him that they would change their behavior overnight, maybe that he were threatened with political violence, right? That's the sort of, it's just really easy to see. Yeah. Even if you think, I don't think, like you said, maybe he went to Russia. I think everything else is probably made up. I don't know. But like, even if you try and explain the details of it, it seems quite easy to explain.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hadn't thought of that. It's like, this is an authoritarian culture, and like, you can imagine drastic changes in group behavior literally overnight because of that context. It's actually very very easy to imagine that happening. And yeah, because I did have a question about like, why is he being allowed to speak there in the first place? Like, that seems surprising. Like, maybe I just have like a cartoonish idea of the Soviet Union, but like, I'm surprised that they're letting a religious person give a religious lecture in the first place. Like, that doesn't sound right to me. So is this like sanctioned? Is this like, how did this happen? Like, what were even the circumstances where you were invited, and like, did they know what you were going to talk about, or what?
I mean, maybe he's just talking about physics, and he could just like be wearing the dog collar or whatever whilst giving an otherwise normal physics talk, and that's what set them off, I guess. And I guess there are, like, the Catholic Church does have a history of astronomy, weirdly. So I suppose. I don't really know anything about this guy's background. Do you? Are you familiar with him?
No, I only know him as the UFOs or demons guy. That's and he's like a young earther, I think. That's all I know about him.
Okay. All right, well, let's keep going with this, because he has at least one more anecdote. And that one will definitely change our minds, I think.
Experiences in the area where I live, near Pasadena, California. I remember walking out of Caltech one day, and this woman, a good 150 feet away, started screaming and yelling at me. And the moment I looked at her, she collapsed and went into the fetal position and started shaking and yelling. And then she began screaming obscenities. And I could tell she was terrified. And that terror reigned within her until I walked away. And this is well documented in demonic literature, that these are some of the classic symptoms of somebody who's demon possessed, quite similar to what you read in the New Testament Gospels when Jesus encountered demons. I remember going into a witchcraft coven, and this guy who was the warlock in the coven said, you think you know the Bible? Give me any verse in the Bible, and I got it memorized. In fact, I got it memorized forward and backwards. So I said, you know what? I believe you. But tell you what, pick a verse out of the Bible and explain its meaning to me. He couldn't do it. He had it memorized, but he couldn't explain the meaning of any verse in the Bible. But he demonstrated supernatural powers right in front of me. He says, look out the window. See that girl there? I can make her do a cartwheel at my command. And so there's a lady in the room. He says, do it now. He did. And she started spinning a cartwheel, and he said, stop. She stopped. So you can clearly see he had some supernatural powers that are enabling to do this.
I'm sorry, I can't keep, yeah, that wasn't a supernatural event. A woman did a cartwheel. I mean, that could so easily be, he's the type of guy who would be like, I saw a magician last night, and he clearly had supernatural powers because I didn't have a dollar bill behind my ear. But he reached round and pulled out a dollar bill from nowhere, so he must have had supernatural powers. Like that.
Dude, he sawed a lady in half. He sawed her in half and then put her back together.
Exactly. I could see the toes wiggling from the sword off there. Like, oh my God. So this is just insane.
I love the other example was he saw a woman having like a mental health episode, like, and that's like, he's like, yeah, she was screaming and flipping out, and it's like, there's nothing supernatural about that story at all. He's like, yeah, this is a classic sign of demonic activity. It's like, yeah, it's a good example of how people used to think like normal mental health things were like, demonic activity. And like that's exactly what Jimmy Akin said in the debate. He's like, yeah, it sounds like that woman was mentally ill. I don't think we should leap to demonic possession when you just see a woman screaming and she's afraid and like curling up in the fetal position on the sidewalk. That's very sad. And like, I don't know, just saying that this is like demonic possession, I think it trivializes it in a way. And it's also just not the right explanation, as pretty much most Christians, I would assume, would agree. They're not going to think that that's demons. And, that woman needs help and she doesn't need an exorcism. But yeah, it's just funny. That whole second example was just a woman screaming. That was it. And then this other example is like, yeah, it's kind of like a magic trick. Like I can make that lady do a cartwheel, and then like she does a cartwheel. It's like, well, first of all, this guy who Hugh Ross described as a warlock, he seems like, if there's a self-described warlock, I feel like he might be, given to like making up tricks, like doing magic tricks, like you're saying. And also, I think that the guy in the witch's coven might not be above, lying or just being like, see that lady over there who I've never met before? She's about to do a cartwheel. It's just like, okay, he might know that lady. Like it would be very easy to set this up, to make like a pretty cool YouTube video or something where it's like, hey, I can make people do things. Hello, person who I've never met before. And then, they do something you agreed upon, beforehand. Somehow I don't think the warlock is above that kind of thing. I don't know. I'm not feeling very convinced that demons are real yet. How about you?
I mean, I like the fact that he wasn't a man who describes himself as a warlock. he is a warlock. Like, that's already, like, we don't need any evidence that demons are real because it just presupposes that warlocks are real. Like, it's hilarious.
I know. I love the seriousness with which he said the warlock. Like, it was a real title, like a real position.
Yeah, and it is a witch's coven. It's not just like a flat that somebody lives in. It's a witch's coven. And who let him in as well? It just seemed to be like, or you just go around. How did he find it? I don't know. It's just there's so much like unexplained context to it. Like, how did you look him up? Was there like a Craigslist like advert for him? Like, how did you find him?
I know that there are several journalistic follow-ups that are necessary here about how did you find yourself in the company of a warlock, or how did you find this witch's coven? I have many questions. But yeah,
it's so disappointing that he didn't make the woman like levitate or move through a wall or something. It was just a cartwheel. Like
that's what I was. Yeah, I was like bracing myself for like, okay, maybe this will be hard to explain. Like if this really did happen, you know, some lady he like levitates her off the ground, and it's like, no, she did a cartwheel. Like, oh well, I've never seen clearer evidence before of, you know, evil spirits possessing people. Cartwheels are hard though, so.
Well, that's true. I think even if I tried to pull off this stunt, I don't think I would have, like, you know, he would have been talking to my wife, and my wife would have like given me the nod through the window, and I would have just fallen over really embarrassingly or whatever. I think, but that doesn't matter because it wasn't actually what she did that was the miracle. It was the fact that it was that he didn't see the cue, right? The wink of the eye or whatever it was that the person outside was waiting for. Hugh Ross didn't see that, and that's what made him think it was miraculous. So it could have been anything, right? She could have just like sat down in a chair, and he would have still been convinced it was demonic because there's nothing actually supernatural about doing a cartwheel. It was just the doing it on command thing. See, if he watches like, you know, these we've seen these like YouTube videos where they're like, you know, collections of videos found on the internet of like, you know, someone just sitting in their room reading a book or something, and then the door opens in the background on its own. And it's evidence of ghosts or something. He would just believe all of those. He would be like, yeah, there are ghosts. It must be a demon, in fact, that pushed the door open, or the book that fell off. You can't imagine that it would just be like, you know, a bit of fishing line that you can't see on the grainy, like, security camera that opened the door. He wouldn't be thinking about that. It would just be, yeah, we learn from the Bible that doors sometimes open. So that means it definitely is a demon.
Yeah, I mean, I watched this whole debate when it came out, and it was actually kind of frustrating because it's like, you know, two Christians arguing about whether UFO sightings are demonic, and I'm like fully on Jimmy's side where it's like, look, there's no evidence that this, even if you believe in demons, if that's just a part of your ontology, there's actually no reason to think that these things are demonic anyway. Like, you can believe in demons. I'm not even necessarily mocking that. It's just the idea that, like, oh yeah, UFOs are demons in particular. And I've mentioned this to you before. This is one of my favorite Capturing Christianity debates because it's the one where Hugh Ross just casually mentions the leprechaun phenomenon, quote unquote, where Jimmy is saying like, look, Christians should really not do this. It makes us look stupid when we say that UFOs are demons. And then Hugh Ross is like, I also think demons could explain the leprechaun phenomenon. It's like, I don't think that's helping. Oh, but also, what the fuck are you talking about? And there was no follow-up. There was no like, hey, Hugh, did you just say the leprechaun phenomenon? Do you think leprechauns are real? And like that they need some kind of supernatural explanation. It was not followed up on at all. And I've never seen anyone else but me talk about it, where it's just like, hang on, can we circle back to the leprechaun thing that Hugh Ross also apparently believes in? But I've also found out that apparently it's a kind of common belief in Ireland. Like a third of the Irish population believes in leprechauns. So there might be something I don't know here. But yeah, Hugh Ross is in addition to this a leprechaun believer.
I mean, and Ireland is traditionally a Catholic place as well, isn't it? So I guess the two overlap in their weird superstitions or something. I mean, I don't know. He must think that there's more to. I mean, like, does he just? I don't know. It'd be nice to know his views on say gnomes or goblins. Or...
Top 10 goblin sightings. Yeah, gnomes, goblins, any type of. I really want to watch like The Unexplained with him, with William Shatner. Have you seen that show?
Yeah.
I love that show. I love it, but I just want to watch it because like it's just going to be like, what about that? He's like demons. It's just like going down the list, like every episode, he's like demons. Yeah, that's also demons.
But like in all seriousness, he says he's a physicist, and I guess there must be something to that. He must have like some credentials as a physicist in some respect. I actually don't know anything about it. I'm not going to say that he's not a physicist because I don't know that, but I do think that he's at least partly making an earning to some extent, going around talking up demon stuff and demonology in general. It's part of the Catholic infrastructure of like demons being real because it provides some kind of role for the priest to come in and do something, right? If it's just a sort of, if someone's schizophrenic or having some kind of breakdown or something, priest actually has got no help. Is going to be no help whatsoever. No more than a normal person. They can empathize and be nice or something, but they're not actually providing the solution to that problem. But you know, if they're not doing that, it's taking away part of their role, I guess. You know, it feels like some expertise that they want to say that they have. So it's kind of like he's got an interest in promoting it as being real, because then it promotes his expert status as someone who can do something about it and talk about it on stream and stuff. So I just think like there's an obvious motivation for him to be credulous towards these otherwise fantastical claims, right?
Yeah, he's kind of like the Warrens. Is that the name of the Ed and Lorraine Warren in the Conjuring movies? Where it's like they were kind of uniquely credulous about these things. Where you know, like they fell for the they made a movie about it. Not The Conjuring. What's that house? Oh, this is gonna drive me crazy.
Is it the one with the like doll thing? I don't know.
No, it's not. It's not Annabelle. This is like outside the Conjuring universe. Hang on, I'm gonna have to look this up. But anyway, there was like Amityville, the Amityville War. Right. So like that was a hoax, but they were like one of the only ones who like fell for it. Like literally every other like journalist and like demonologist and investigator or whatever, they all looked at it and they were like, yeah, it seems like they're trying to like sell a book and like movie rights and stuff. They're not. This isn't real. And then Ed and Lorraine Warren were like, they were the only ones who were like, this is real, you know. And it's just that kind of thing happened, and it's just like, yeah, it's like what you're saying. They have these interests that I think are maybe causing some motivated reasoning. I don't even know if it's conscious, but I think that what you're saying is true. It's probably a little bit intentional, but it doesn't have to be. Like, you don't have to attribute like ill intent to all these people, but it is clearly in their interest to like, you know, be a little bit credulous about this stuff, because like you're saying, it puts them in a position of power. It like gives them some expertise. It gives a lot of them some income, you know, like with the Warrens, this was like their job. Yeah, so I mean, I can see that for sure. Because mostly it just seems goofy to me. But you forget there are people who are like profiting off of this in various ways.
And there are people who are like petrified of it being real. For them, it's like, you know, big deal to them. But just to like, also you can pay people to come around and like, you know, pretend basically that they're talking to your long lost grandfather or your recently departed spouse or something, and they'll pass a message from the other side across, whatever, this type of thing. And like, I think, I don't know, maybe some of them think that they're really doing it, some of them know that it's bullshit, but maybe some of them are thinking, I'm helping someone who's sad, and it's not that big a deal, it's kind of harmless or whatever, I don't know. But like, at the end of the day, the person on the receiving end of that has a very strong, like, overriding kind of emotional reason to want to believe that it's true. And like, I think that's the same sort of thing that's going on here. If you're already deep into the Catholic law and you think demons are real, then you're going to be credulous to this guy's story as well. You're going to think that it's, you know, more than we are. I mean, my prior probability that demons are real is basically zero. I'm like almost completely convinced demons are not real. Even, you know, theism is like, I don't know what, I'm going to put a number on it, but like, theism could be true. I mean, I don't think it is, but it could be. Christianity, pretty low probability of that being true. But I kind of think even if I came to believe Christianity was true, I wouldn't just believe all of this stuff as well. Like I wouldn't start believing in leprechauns and gnomes and stuff just because I came to believe Christianity was true.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you'd have to approach it like it would have to, your prior would have to go up a lot in demons if you accepted Christianity. Like, I am slightly annoyed. Like, this is kind of how I was raised to believe that it was like, this is a package, you know? But I think there's some good reasoning to that, where it's like, how are you going to look at the stories of Jesus dealing with demons and not think, like, oh, I'm a Christian, but I don't think demons are real. Like, I don't know if that's really tenable at the end of the day. Like, anyway, so it seems like if you did become a Christian, you would kind of have to believe in demons. I know some people don't, but I don't know how do you square that, like, with the New Testament. But you know, for me, it's frustrating because I'm like very open to a lot of like spookier things, quote unquote, and like I'm interested in like finding out if some of these stories are real with like parapsychological things or just, you know, stuff that's in this genre of like spooky stuff. And this kind of stuff really annoys me because I feel like it sets that back, because I think there are maybe a couple of things that are not complete bullshit that fall into this category. Like, I kind of suspect that is the case. And, you know, that's why I like keep investigating it and keep looking into it. So I really resent things like this and like a lot of these, like, you know, miracle stories where it's like, oh, I have a fourth-hand anecdote about someone who had their dick chopped off and it grew back after someone prayed over it. And it's like, I hate that stuff. And I hate, like, the telepathy tapes, if you know what that is. At one point, it was like the #1 podcast in the world. It like surpassed Joe Rogan. Complete bullshit. It's about facilitated communication. It does not stand up to scrutiny. It's been debunked by parapsychological researchers, like Jimmy Akin, by the way. But it's like, when you flood the zone with this like low quality bullshit, like, oh, I just wrote an 8,000 word article about Fatima where a bunch of religious fanatics stared at the sun and then saw a weird thing. It's like, that kind of stuff annoys me a lot, like the same way this demon video does, because I feel like it's setting back that thing that I care about, where I'm like, look, there might be some of this spooky stuff, like there might be a couple cases where it's actually not complete bullshit, and this isn't helping. This is not helping. This is like setting it back, you know, like you have to apply the acid of skepticism and see what remains. And I think a couple things might remain. That's why I'm interested in it. But like, this stuff is not helping. It's just setting it back.
That's right. I feel the same way about like the aliens topic, right? Because I'm very skeptical that there's like good evidence that aliens have like visited the Earth. I mean, I don't think that's plausible. But I mean, it's a much more subtle question to think: is there an alien civilization, you know, in this massive, unbelievably massive universe? Right? A lot of people think there has to be, just because there's so many stars and opportunities in principle for that to happen. So it's like, it's a sort of reasonable scientific hypothesis that you should investigate, and it's not silly. But then you get like, did you see there was this stuff about, do you know what a Muamua is? Oh, yeah. Yeah, right. And then, and there was another one the other day, 3 Atlas or something is another. So this is like, for people who don't know, it's like I guess a comet that's come from beyond the solar system and it's like passed through. And because we've got like the means to notice these things now, we've started to notice that there's a couple of these things that definitely didn't originate in this solar system. But then you get these guys like, there's this guy Avi Loeb, who's a physicist at Harvard, and he's just like always saying this is an alien spaceship, this is alien technology, it's definitely aliens. And it's like, it's not though. Like there's no good, like it's from outside this solar system. It's not a big fucking piece of alien spaceship. It's like obviously a comet. You know, it's a bit different from the stuff we're used to seeing. But constantly saying that and then being obvious bullshit just like discredits the otherwise like interesting scientific question of whether there actually is evidence that you could find. It's like, not this stupid comet thing, but there might be something more interesting out there. And I think that like they undermine the whole field by jumping to the, you know, scandalous conclusion all the time.
Well, I think that's actually a good example, because Oumuamua is genuinely a weird thing. Like it's I mean, Avi Loeb has a book to sell, I mean, that's why he's like so insistent on, it's a spaceship or whatever. Which he doesn't just say it's a spaceship. He also thinks it's like, maybe it's like junk or whatever. He just thinks it's artificial.
Sure.
And it's like it's not like there's no case to be made that Oumuamua was artificial. Like, it's just, if you leap to, it's an alien spaceship or whatever, like, Avi Loeb is, he can obscure, like, the interesting scientific questions of, like, okay, this thing came through our solar system. It actually doesn't have the normal properties of a comet. Like, there are, like, he names, like, 6 different things that, okay, this is why I don't think it's a comet or whatever. There are, like, these 6 properties of it that don't fit. But, like, yeah, leaping to, like, this is aliens or something. It's like, well, look, it's not complete bullshit to say, hey, there's actually some reason to think Oumuamua might have been artificial. But yeah, kind of sensationalizing it and, like, selling a book about how alien spaceships are flying through our solar system is, like you're saying, it's not helping.
But it's like, guess what his opinion about 3i Atlas was? That it's alien technology as well. Like, if he was like, oh, the next one comes in, he's like, no, this is just a comet or something, I'd give him a lot more credibility. But he just sees another book tour if there's the next one coming. And this guy as well, he's thinking, I could do another round of podcasts if I don't know. Maybe I'm being a bit too mean to him. Maybe this guy just is just deep into the lore and it makes sense to him, and he's being completely genuine. That's totally possible.
I thought if people are interested in the Oumuamua thing, like, Avi Loeb debated Michael Shermer about it on his podcast, and Michael Shermer does not get a word in edgewise at several points because Avi Loeb was pissed about everyone calling him like a hack and like a joke and everything. So he was like mad, and he just went on and on. But I thought that was an interesting debate nonetheless. And I think that's worth checking out.
Nice. I haven't seen that, but I may well look that up afterwards. All right. Have we still got more of this video to do? Does he say anything else that we need to look at? I guess it's only like a minute. No, there's still a full minute.
Oh, wow.
Let's see what happens. If it's just, I might turn it off.
But I knew that what the powers he was getting were not from the righteous angels, because he had enslaved about a 10 to 12 women in that home as his sexual slaves. And they're all terrified of him. But yeah, we were able to rescue those women from his clutch. So those are a few examples. I could give you a lot more, not just of my life, but the lives of...
I love Jimmy's face. He's not impressed. Although Cameron looks very earnest and seeking and like,
I know. He's like, this is serious. This is some serious shit. Although, like, because I was like laughing, but then he's like, well, we rescued these girls from like being like sex slaves to this warlock or whatever. And it's like, okay, that's good. I'm glad, if this is being accurately reported, I'm glad that you rescued those girls from their like Manson ass situation. But like, at a certain point, I can look at that and think like, you know what, buddy, you're right. Good job. You should continue rescuing sex slaves, even though you think this is like the guy has demonic powers and that's why he's convinced a bunch of women to be in his harem, like through, it's definitely not like drugs and force and other it's not those things. He did not get them hooked on anything. He's not threatening them or their families. He did not lure them in any natural way, shape, or form. It's demonic power. Yeah, okay, fine. But here's the thing, I'm not rescuing anyone from a harem. So like, if he actually did that, then props to him. And like, you know what? Go wild, go buck wild. You're right. The guy has demonic powers.
Yeah, I question. I mean, if the warlock can make people do backflips on command, why, when Hugh Ross was trying to rescue these ladies, he didn't just make Hugh Ross backflip the fuck out of there, and he just let him somehow? I mean, how did they do that? I guess the power of Jesus or something.
Power of Jesus, yeah. He had the Bible with him. He was praying. Yeah, that's probably something to do with the power of Jesus. But
and we didn't actually mention the guy who could... Oh, is this the same guy who knew all of the verses in the Bible, but he couldn't explain what they meant? It's really strange.
He's like the Chinese room of the Bible, where he's like, I know all the words, I can memorize, like I can recite, and it's like, oh, what does that mean? And then he's like, oh, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
I remember hearing a story at youth group that was kind of like that when I was a kid, where there was this demon possessed guy, and they said, because in the Bible, I think it says somewhere something like, oh, a demon possessed person, or like a demon can't say Jesus is Lord or something. And they were like, hey, can you say Jesus is Lord? And he was like, and like, they were like, he couldn't do it. And that's when we knew he was demon possessed.
So that's like how if someone's trying to buy drugs off you, you just need to ask them if they're an undercover cop, because they're not allowed to lie about that. So
it's in the Constitution.
Yeah, good. So I'll remember that next time I'm worried about, are you a warlock?
You have to tell me if you're a warlock. It's in the Constitution.
Yeah, I don't know. Is there something about not being able to explain the meaning of the verse, though? Is that something you would expect a demon not to be able to do?
I mean, it seems like Satan kind of understood when he was quoting things to Jesus. Like, I don't think he was just like LLM style doing like predictive text, like maybe this is relevant. Like, it seems like he understood why this might make sense, even though he was manipulating it or whatever. Like, I don't even think it's biblical to say that, like, oh, demons can't actually understand the Bible.
Yeah, because it's weird if it doesn't come from anything like that. Like, it's just a strange thing to think. And like, I guess I'm overthinking it, but like, what if he read a book about what the Bible verses mean? Would he not be able to memorize that book and just say, well, at least, according to this theologian, this is what it means, right? Is he forbidden from doing that? I don't get it. So, yeah,
the psychophysical laws of demons, it's a whole different set of psychophysical laws for demons, and they're very
right. Yeah, okay, good. So, yeah, I just wonder how like third-hand it gets. Like, what if someone else read the book on theology and then wrote their own summary of that, and he read the summary? Could he not even explain that much? I don't know. It feels kind of impractical, It's a
mind wipe. It's like Severance. Like, that part of him is just cut off, and he can't remember anything from when he's like reading interpretation of biblical text.
Yeah, and it was strange that he was all like, give me any verse. Just name a verse and I'll tell it, as if that would prove anything. The whole exchange is just so bizarre the more you think about it.
This is the epic spiritual battle, man. Asking warlocks to recite Bible verses, and then they can, and then it's like, yeah, but you don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I said, I'm kind of jealous. This is awesome. This is awesome that this is his life.
That's true. And my life is way less interesting than this, so I completely agree. Okay, I think I'm done with this guy. Any final thoughts about demons?
God damn, I really thought I was going to be convinced. But yeah, demons, I'm sorry to say, I still do not see really great evidence for demons. I mean, I hear Catholic priests talk about really great evidence, like people are going on Cameron's channel saying like, yeah, this demon-possessed person like crawled up the wall and on the ceiling like a spider, and it's like, oh, is there any chance at all, and I know this is a stupid question, but could you possibly record any of that for like other people to see, so we don't just have to take your word for it? And then they're always like, well, it would violate their privacy for us to do that. It's like, well, you could very easily take these videos without violating anyone's privacy. First of all, you could ask the family, is it okay if we do this? And then after you've cured them of their possession, you can say, hey, can I show this to other people? We'll change your name, we'll blur your face, and we'll show it to other people to help convince them, that this stuff is real. Because I've been going on podcast after podcast telling these stories, and some people don't believe me, and I would really like to have some evidence, besides my word for it. And it's just like, I'm pretty sure they would say yes, at least, some of the time. So, like, this whole privacy excuse is just total bullshit, and no one even buys it. Like, I saw Matt Fradd asking one of these exorcists about it, and like, you can tell Matt Fradd doesn't even buy it. Like, he's listening like, like, he's just like, he doesn't even buy what this fucking priest is saying. And anyway, there are the list of exorcists who I trust, there's no one on that list. Okay, like, they're all liars by default. Like, they're going on podcasts talking about things that just didn't happen the way that they're reporting. And you say like, listen, man, I'm open-minded. If you show me a video, obviously I'm going to analyze the video. Like, this is the age of AI and everything. I'm not going to just be bowled over by a video of a goblin running through someone's house. But like, I'm going to look at the video. But if it holds up, I will change my mind. I am persuadable about this. Okay, if I see a lady crawling on the fucking ceiling, I'm not just going to like dismiss that automatically. Okay, and they won't do it. And they won't do it because it doesn't happen, because they're lying. This is not what actually happens when they're doing their exorcisms.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. It's very, very difficult for me to think this isn't lying. Like, I'm sort of open to the thought that maybe he's being genuine and he thinks this. I guess maybe that's right. But it's the other explanation is this. It's just bullshit. He's just a bullshitter. And he likes the attention he gets from these funny stories that he tells. That's another explanation that might be true.
Yeah, and I bet weird shit happens during exorcisms. Okay, but like, you can see how these stories can get like exaggerated, you know, like with each retelling, and how your memory could even get warped of what happened.
Yeah,
you know, this is pretty basic stuff. Like, but yeah, I don't. It's just so frustrating to have nothing but their say so, you know. And this reminds me, this is the last thing I'll say about it. Because, you know, Cameron has done a lot of these demon videos, and like, this was just by chance, but like, he was doing a live stream with a guy who, like, you know, did exorcisms or something. And much like Hugh Ross, he saw some evidence for demon possession because there was a cat in the room that just like started going crazy and like being an asshole and like scratching people and things and running around. And he was just like, and that's when I knew that demons were around us or something. And it's just like, holy shit. But anyway, I tuned in for like 10 seconds and that's what they were talking about. But anyway.
It must have been like his first experience with a cat, because like they do that shit all the time. Cats are crazy. I mean,
he was running around, he was pouncing on little bits of carpet. Why would he do that?
Yeah, he was twitching. His tail was twitching weirdly, like a demon.
I tried to pet him and then he scratched me. Like, at first he acted like he wanted me to pet him, and it was all fine. And then all of a sudden he swats at me. What's that?
That was the precise moment that the demon entered his body. Oh man, okay. Whew, okay, enough of that demon stuff. Right. Let's change to a different video. So this is going to manage to change screen sharing without ending the stream. 10 questions for atheists. So now we're changing to Braxton Hunter. It's one of those kind of American names where both of them sound like surnames to me, and I always have to think, is it Hunter Braxton? That's just as believable a name as Braxton Hunter. Whatever. Braxton Hunter, this guy on Trinity Radio. He seems like a nice man. And I think when I debated William Lane Craig, he did a big video afterwards about it. And I think I maybe had some like Facebook message exchanges with him or something. And I kind of wanted to just come on his show and talk to him about it and explain why he was wrong about all the things he said. But that never happened. So, I mean, I'd still be up for doing that, but I don't know whether he'll ever watch this. And maybe if we're too glib with our answers here, he won't want me to come on.
I might say something glib at some point in this video, but it's not. I don't have any like bad feelings towards Braxton at all. Like you said, he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. I have no problem with him. It's not personal. Like, if I'm criticizing things in the video, it's not because I have any personal beef or issue with him at all. He seems like a nice guy.
I don't know him. I know him as much as I know Hugh Ross. He also is probably a nice man, I guess. This isn't like when some horrific kind of internet guy like Darth Dawkins or something was just an obscene person. This guy is a perfectly fine person. Okay, good. So, and this is 10 questions for atheists, and you actually did a video on this when it came out, which is 5 years ago. So we hopefully won't just say the same stuff that you said then.
I didn't.
mean,
So I did not. I saw the first couple questions of this just to jog my memory, but I don't remember all the questions that he asks in this video, and I didn't watch my old response. But I looked up my Google Doc where I just had some bullet points, and I was like, oh man, I think I'm going to give like totally different answers for all these questions, because in the intervening 4 or 5 years, I think my views have changed a little bit. But yeah, it'll be fun to get an update.
Okay, good. So let's crack on with this. I guess I'll pause after each one, and then we can say what we think. Otherwise, it's going to be too much, because it's like, well, it's 7 minutes. But yeah, let's try and go. I mean, in fact, we can listen to the whole thing, I think.
The worldview discussions space can be so combative. And when atheists and Christians come up with lists of questions that they don't think the other side can answer, those questions usually aren't genuine. I've never made a list like that, although I've responded to some. Here, I hope my atheist interlocutors will consider these questions deeply without giving glib answers. These aren't meant to be gotcha questions, though I'm not asking for no reason. I expect you will have answers, and I want to hear what the most sincere among you have to say. With that, here are my 10 questions for atheists.
Wait, am I sharing the screen? I am, aren't I? Yeah.
What facts about reality that you and I agree are real facts about the way the world is does your worldview account for, but my Christianity doesn't account for? Please doesn't account for well. And for those of you that would point out atheism isn't a worldview, I'm talking about your worldview that includes atheism. I can't think of any. Christianity accounts for evil, suffering, the existence of other religions, including supernatural events in those other religions, science, and differences among different denominations of Christianity. But I can think of many things that the most common worldviews that include atheism don't answer as well as I think Christianity does. Like universal supernatural claims, universal religious experiences, free will, morality, near-death experiences, beauty, the rapid expansion of the early church, the events surrounding the life and death of Jesus of Nazareth, and our shared longing for purpose and meaning. So what is it that Christianity doesn't answer as well as your worldview?
Okay, so he had a lot of things there. I've already forgotten most of them. What were your thoughts, though?
It's like he tries to anticipate some of it, but yeah, I'm going to say some of the things that he named. It's like, yeah, your worldview does a worse job explaining suffering. Okay, because you believe in like a perfect being or whatever at the foundation of reality, something approximating that. And I don't. So like those yield different expectations about, for instance, like, is the world going to seem morally random? Or is there going to be seemingly some kind of moral order and justice to the world? Like, these things don't yield identical expectations. If you, like hypothetically, if you're defending the hypothesis of indifference, then you expect a pretty much morally random world. If you think that God is at the foundation, then you don't really expect the same degree of moral randomness. Okay, well, the world looks pretty fucking morally random to me. So, like, that's some evidence for atheism over theism. And it's like, that just seems totally obvious to me. I don't know why anyone would even deny that or be so cocky about, like, there's nothing that your worldview can explain better than mine. It's like, really? You can't think of anything with evil or moral randomness or, like, the existence of flesh-eating bacteria or something? You don't think that's maybe a little bit more expected on, like, in a universe that's indifferent to pain and pleasure and good and evil and suffering and the rest of it? Maybe you might expect flesh-eating bacteria more than in a world that is designed by God, perhaps. Really? Like, you can't see that at all? Like, I don't know, like, the problem of evil, in my view, is, like, such a ridiculously successful philosophical argument. It's like, come on, like, at least throw me a bone with the problem of evil a little bit. But I also think that divine hiddenness probably better explained by atheism than theism. Religious diversity and discord, like, and again, it's not that these things can't be explained by theists. It's just like, do you think it's a little more expected? Like, if God doesn't exist? Well, yeah, I think divine hiddenness is maybe a little bit more expected in a world where there's just not a God than in a world where there is a God who is, for secret reasons, remaining hidden. Pretty obvious.
Yeah, I mean, like it's unclear exactly what the metric is. Like you said, there could be an explanation for those things. Is he saying all that needs to be is a possible explanation on Christianity, and that's the bar he's saying he can clear, and there isn't even a possible explanation for some of those things? Like, I don't know, the success of the early church, right? There's not even a possible explanation on atheism. Surely the bar can't be that low that he thinks he can clear it by just saying there's a possible explanation. It must be, like you said, something more about the balance of probabilities, right? So, and if that's the case, it's really hard to see how he's just saying, oh, well, that bar is easily cleared on Christianity when it comes to the problem of evil. I mean, like, what? So is he running this idea? I don't know enough about how he runs these other arguments, but do you think he's thinking evil only makes sense if God exists or something? And that's how it doesn't even make sense on atheism.
Yeah, he might be doing some Frank Turek jujitsu there on well, actually evil is evidence for God, but yeah, I mean, barring that, I don't know what he would be thinking, because yeah, you're right, it seems like there's this kind of almost equivocation where it's like, well, I'm basically saying that Christians can explain this, like there is a coherent explanation of X, Y, and Z, and it's like, yeah, I never said there wasn't, like of course there is, but is he saying that the reverse is not true? Like the miraculous 4% per decade or whatever it is, like growth rate of the early church, it might have been 40% per decade, 4% annually. I remember reading Bart Ehrman about this recently, where he's talking about the growth of the early church and kind of how he thinks that happened. It's like this mimetic combination of evangelism and exclusivism, which was unique in that world. Like Jews were exclusive but not evangelical. Pagans were not like anti-evangelical, but they weren't exclusive. So it's like you start worshiping a new pagan deity, you don't have to stop worshiping all the other ones, like it is for Christians. So like when Christians convert someone else, as Christianity grows, paganism shrinks, and it didn't work that way, in the pagan context. And then, they're like really enthusiastically evangelizing, partly because they think that the end of the world is right around the corner, because there's some horrible, fate that is going to befall non-believers. I think, what's his name? Ramsey McMullen called this the only sadistic literature I'm aware of in the ancient world. Christians talking about people who are gonna, go to hell or whatever for not believing, or whatever reason they're going to hell. But it's like, okay, so there's kind of the rudiments of an explanation of how the early church might have grown. Like it's this totally unique, innovative combination of evangelism and exclusivism that Bart Ehrman talks about in his book about this. And, could that explain a 4% annual growth rate? Yeah, probably. I don't know. It seems plausible. I don't know if God had to intervene for that. And also, like, this totally miraculous intervention led to, like, not quite 1/3 of the world being Christian. And that's if you include everybody, like, everybody. So, I don't really know if divine intervention is the best explanation there anyway.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it seems like he brushed over religious diversity as well, which I don't really understand why, if Christianity is true, why he tolerates people who can be as wrong as, like, Taoists or whatever. They're not even close to the truth if Christianity's right. And there's loads of them, and they've been around for, like, thousands of years as well. And, like, why not just, like, nudge them towards the one true faith? He's just letting them all, like, it's not really their fault if you grow up in a Confucian or Buddhist society and you don't know anything about Christianity. But, too bad on that theory. And that's really weird if God is, like, all powerful and really wants to have a relationship with everyone. It's you have some prima facie explanation to give there. But religious diversity, I think, on the view that there are, none of them are true, is explainable in terms of, like, psychological facts about people trying to find meaning and social bonds and blah blah blah. There's a load of stuff you could say about like naturalistic explanations of religious practices. There are loads of those, and I'm not sure that religious diversity is a big deal, a big problem if you're an atheist. But surely it's a big deal if you're that kind of exclusivist religious person who thinks there's one true, you're not just some like a Hick style kind of universalist where it's just, I'm sensing the trunk of the elephant, you're sensing the foot or something, both got our own picture. No. If you think it's just Christianity's true and Buddhism's false, then it's a weird thing that God let that happen, right?
Yeah, like you said, you have some prima facie reason to think that maybe God wouldn't do that. And I'm not saying that the case is so strong God would never let other religions flourish. Neither of us are saying that. It's just you have some reason for thinking that maybe God wouldn't allow people to be lied to as children and then led into hell. If you're some kind of inclusivist or universalist, you can kind of more easily explain why God does not seem too pressed about getting people on the right page theologically. But if you're not those things, and I somehow doubt Braxton is those things, then you have some problem on your hands, at least relative to a more naturalistic worldview, where asking why different religious views evolved is like asking why different cultural norms evolved. Or just being hey, why did different animals evolve, in geographic isolation? It's well, they have different environments. They're geographically isolated. There's different pressures, and then they have different characteristics. It's the same thing psychologically and culturally. It's oh, why do they do this thing in China and we do this other thing in America? It's different religious views is equally difficult to explain as that, which is to say, not at all. It's it's exactly what you'd expect. It's not weird at all. There's nothing to explain really. But if you're a theist, there's more to explain. It's harder to explain why God is letting these people be led into, eternal conscious torment or annihilation or whatever, because they're going to fail the theology test at the end of their life. So, that seems like a much bigger problem for you if you're a Christian than if you're a naturalist or something.
Yeah. And there's one I thought of that's not on his list, which is grief. I don't really understand mourning a dead person if you think that what has happened is that they are basically still alive, but in heaven, in the best possible place. What are you sad about? So the explanations don't fit the level of grief. Grief when you lose a loved one, it's a super intense, horrible emotion that just happens to you or whatever. But if Christian metaphysics is correct, just snap out of it. You're being irrational. Shut the fuck up crying. The best thing that could have happened to them has just happened. Why are you crying? And the only explanation, it seems to me, is it's that you're going to miss them, aren't you? If you don't see, there might be 30 years till I'm in heaven or something. I'm not going to see them for 30 years. But two things about that always haven't really flaccid, right? The first is that when I go there as well, if all of this stuff is true, we'll both be there for an infinite amount of time. So the 30-year gap is going to pale into insignificance. So just suck it up, stop crying. It doesn't actually matter that much because of the infinity. It's going to wash away however much time it seems like now. So that doesn't seem like a sort of plausible thing to bring into it. The other thing is it's a kind of if you someone say this analogy once where it's if you drop your kid off at university or something or college or whatever, and you're sad when you drive away because of it being a big change, even if they're in a better place now, going studying, whatever they want to do with their life and stuff, you're sad as a parent that that bit of your relationship with them is over or something. But I can sort of imagine it kind of brings a tear to your eye thinking about that, whatever. But that type of, it's almost melancholy. It's not the terrible grief, emotion that you have. It's not comparable. It's not a substitute where you could say when somebody that you love dies, that you feel a bit like when you drop your kid off at college. It feels it massively underplays the emotion. So it just seems to me, prima facie, if you think heaven is real and that the people who die definitely go there, I guess the other thing is you might be worried that they've not gone to heaven. But then you should be 50-50. You should only really be sad if you're convinced that they've not gone to heaven or something, right? That kind of makes sense. But yeah, grieving someone who you think is in heaven makes no sense. And at the very least, it's prima facie something you've got to say to explain if you're someone like Braxton, who I imagine believes heaven is kind of like being alive, but better.
Yeah. Yeah, no, those were my two objections actually. As you were saying that, you kind of convinced me. Like, because yeah, I was thinking like, well, they're gonna miss them because it's gonna be like 30 years before they see him again. Like that would make me sad too. And it's like, yeah, like the analogy with dropping your kid off too. But you're right. There's a discrepancy with the emotion that you're actually feeling. It's not like the kind of melancholy or sadness. It's like grief is a whole other animal, you know. And I've never felt grief, so I just have to like take people's word for it. I've like no one close to me has died somehow. I'm like 30 and this has never happened to me. It will someday unless I die first. But like, you know, someday I'm going to have to confront this like in a first person kind of way. But right now I hear what people say about grief. And I'm like, okay, this seems like a completely different emotion than dropping your kid off at college and missing them or something, or like feeling melancholy. But yeah, I mean, it is, I think you're right though, that like they are being kind of irrational, you know? And I guess if I were still trying to defend the Christian position, I would say like, yeah, people are irrational and like they're overwhelmed by their like biological instincts, which is like, you know, avoid death or whatever, and like grieving the people who are close to you. It's like, so I could even like, if I were going along with this, you know, dialectic, I might be like, okay, maybe you're right that it's irrational, which is maybe more than they want to grant. But it's like, okay, yes, it's irrational, but humans are irrational. And like the reason is because, you know, we have these like biological urges that are kind of overwhelming. Like, oh yeah, I can see that you're right. Like they're in a much, much, much better place right now. It's actually great that they're dead. And, you know, soon I'll join them. But like, you know, I'm not biologically programmed to feel that way. So it's like, you know, I have this awful set of emotions. I guess that's what I would say if I were trying to defend it.
That just seems to like open up a new question then, which would be like, why did God make us so that we are predisposed to this completely irrational and unnecessary sense of grief when somebody dies? That then becomes a mystery that you'd have to explain.
Yeah, that, you know what that is? That's psychophysical disharmony.
Yeah,
that's an irrational mismatch between our mental states and the reality of the situation. So
I have one more. Right, I don't think I'll be able to explain this in enough detail to do it justice, because I think I might even try writing a paper with this as the idea. But I had this idea the other day that like on some versions of Christianity, you have like a soul that survives death, right? And it's a bit like substance dualism in the sense that you've got like some mental substance effectively that's potentially independent from the physical brain, like ontologically distinct at least. And if you think it can continue after you die, then it is kind of detachable, so independent in principle in that sense. But then I kind of feel like, I'm not really sure about this inference properly, but if my soul can exist after my body dies, like in heaven or whatever, then it feels like it could have been embodied in a different body instead. Like maybe when I get to heaven, God has like a new body waiting for me, and it's a bit like an avatar or something. In which case, the correlation between my body and my mind, I guess this is like the pairing problem or whatever, but you know, like I think a different mind could have been correlated with this very body instead. And this very mind could have been correlated with a different body. They're just like contingently connected, it seems like. But then if that's right, then what you've got is this, so there's this like familiar story that one day you sort of realize how many things had to line up perfectly for you to be born in the first place. Like this big series of events. I'm not talking about fine tuning, just think about all the different sperm and egg combinations in the history of your specific lineage, right? Millions and billions of different opportunities for it to have gone differently. And if any of them had gone differently, you wouldn't be here right now. So you've won this lottery, this incalculably unlikely odds of you being here. But the kind of materialist or whatever has got some answer where he says something like, well, at least he's going to say something like, well, sure, those are the odds, but all there is to you being you is this material thing being here. So like it's this number times this number times this number times this number, stretching back almost as far as you can imagine of just unlikely stuff, but it's some finite number. I think that the Christian theist who was thinking like I was talking about there, with the soul is like only contingently related to the body, also has that lottery. So in a sense, we're just equal at this point. But then they've got this additional bit, which is all of that stuff could have happened, but God could have just picked a different soul to associate with this body instead. And he may have never embodied my soul in anything. So there's another lottery that happens after all of the physical stuff has had to land exactly right for this body to be here at all, which is then God picks out of presumably an infinite number of possible souls and decides my one is the one that's going to go into this body, right? And then what's the odds of that happening? It just feels like 1 over infinity or something, because he could have put any old soul in there instead, but mine is the one that landed it. So they've got an additional lottery to explain, and I think the odds of it are like infinite to 1, plausibly. So I kind of feel like you can give the theist anything they want to say about fine-tuning. Let's say it's 1 in 10 to the 127th power. It's still better than the infinite lottery that you have to run, where God could have embodied any old soul in your body. Whereas the materialist just says, well, that's all there is to me, is this body. So there's nothing extra for them to explain. So there's like, I don't know, that's a bit too technical. Braxton Hunter isn't expected to sort of think all of that through, I suppose. But that seems to me it's another challenge that they've got, that the atheist, or at least materialist, doesn't have.
Yeah, there's some questions about personal identity there that I don't know the answer to, but it's like that would be an interesting, response, I guess, to like the anthropic argument, if you're familiar with that. But yeah, that's an interesting thought, because now I'm thinking about like the generation of souls. Like, okay, how does this work? Like, because when you say God picks out this soul, I mean, are souls eternal, and then God is like choosing this one that already exists to be embodied, or is he creating them ex nihilo? And this is a debate in Christian theology. I think it's like Traducianism. I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly, but there's like a dispute over whether the soul always existed and it's kind of like passed on from like person to person, or if it's like there's like a new soul that like is generated ex nihilo. So it's like the only sense in which it's being picked out is like, epistemic probability, like, oh, it could have been any soul. But the thing is, like, when I'm thinking about, okay, I'm in this scenario, I'm a substance dualist, and I'm thinking like, wait, what does it mean to say my soul other than, this is my mind, like this mind right here? Like, is there something specific about mind that really distinguishes it? Because I don't know how much I want to place like psychological attributes into the soul, like, or how much I want to attribute that to the body and brain and everything. Like, yeah, maybe like phenomenal consciousness, like, yeah, the soul is the seed of phenomenal consciousness. It's the reason it's like anything. But to what extent are like my cognitive and psychological attributes residing in the soul? Because maybe all souls are kind of like, they're exactly identical at the moment of generation. And it's when they're embodied, it's like that's what makes it your soul, is that this is your point of view and it's not anyone else's point of view. But there's nothing actually distinct or unique about your soul prior to embodiment. So it's like there's not really a distinction between souls, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like, that seems like a possibility. Where they're all
I think, but I thought of that sort of idea as well. But I think I want to say about that something like, so suppose you have this story where you live some, fourscore-and-10 or whatever it is, and then you die and you go into heaven. Well, there better be some fact about this soul waking up in heaven that means it's identical to that soul that just, passed away on earth. There better be something that's in virtue of which this thing is the same thing as that one. It can't just be that all souls are the same, like photons or whatever, where they're just interchangeable. There's nothing about them that's different. It has to be my soul that wakes up. Yeah. Because if not, then I don't mean they're like, I even survive that?
They're not numerically identical. It's just like they're identical in every sense, but like numerically. So like they're like, this is my point of view, and then my point of view will resume, in heaven. But like, my soul is numerically identical to my soul and not, to yours, but they're qualitatively identical when they're like unembodied, is what I was thinking.
Yeah, but then I think it could have, like, I want to say something like, before I was embodied, God could have picked your soul and put it in my body instead.
Yes.
And if you're going to say, look, there's no fact of the matter at that point because they're indistinguishable, I think that's too strong, and I think then it makes this issue of, like, do I even survive after death in that case? Like, you can't make them too too indistinguishable. There has to be something. A hexaity is a kind of philosophical term. There has to be something intrinsic to this thing that makes it this one. And as long as I've got that, I think then I can run this sort of lottery argument. But anyway, it's kind of speculative. But I thought it was something I've been thinking about.
Yeah.
recently.
No, it's super interesting. I'm just thinking, like, why wouldn't it be enough just to say, like, look, what I really am is a mind. It's like this point of view. And if that point of view continues and it's this point of view, why is that not sufficient to say that, like, yeah, I survived? And it's true that I could have been embodied in your body, but then my point of view would have been, you know, like there'd be a reliable set of causal connections between my soul and your body, but I would still exist. It would still be my point of view.
But what if God just chose to embody a different mind in your body and just not embody your soul or mind at all? That seems just as possible. I don't see why you can say that's not possible, but all this other stuff about surviving after death and blah, blah, blah. So it just feels like there's some chance that he didn't pick my soul.
It is.
And everything else
I feel
is
like
the
it is
same.
possible for like a soul to be unembodied and just kind of exist, but have no experiences because it's not being. There's no causal connection between it and anything else. Maybe that's like something. Maybe it's not. But there wouldn't be any content. I don't think.
Maybe it's just a
it's
merely possible soul or something. It's not actual. Nonetheless, it could have been actualized. Right, so if you want to say it doesn't exist, it's creation ex nihilo. That's not like they're sitting on some shelf or something and he's choosing which one to put in a body. Maybe none of them exist until he puts them in a body. But still, he had a choice. Which one out of all the possible ones shall I make? I'll make the one with the hexaity of Alex instead of the hexaity of Emerson, whatever. And I just feel like it's hard to deny something like that in this picture.
Yeah, especially I would say if you try to start putting some baggage in the soul where it's like, oh, actually, a lot of your psychological attributes are, you know, they reside in the soul, actually. You know, like because people make the argument from reason, you know, they try to say that, like, certain aspects of cognition are actually immaterial. It's like, okay, so now the soul is doing more than, you know, what I was saying a moment ago. And, like, the more you add to that list, the more I think your argument makes sense, at least, like, you know, prima facie, where it's like, yeah, this is really my soul. Like, you can choose between a bunch of different souls. If, you know, the more they do, then, you know, the more distinct they seem. And it's like there's a really concrete sense in which this is mine and not yours. They're not just like identical before they're embodied, you know?
So there's another one, basically. TLDR, there's another one. So I think because we've only done one of his questions and there are 10. Sorry. So yeah, my summary of this one was just that he did say for the atheists not to be glib, and then he was quite glib in brushing over things about what might be difficult to explain on theism. So it's a sort of double standard there.
I don't like glibness about the problem of evil. The problem of, like, I've written about this before, but, like, there's something like, I don't know, there's something about evil and kind of like trivializing evil, I think, that is like very perverse and almost like sacrilegious, that there's like a kind of perversity to explaining it in a very like glib, hand wavy kind of way that is not present when if you were just very glib and hand wavy about the fine tuning argument, there's not really a moral dimension to that. But if you're talking about like the agony of someone who's tortured pointlessly for a long time, like, it seems like you're doing something wrong, actually. Like, you're doing something that should make people kind of morally appalled, like, in addition to just, like, intellectually.
Yeah, it becomes an example of the type of thing the argument is about. It's a sort of type of evil itself, like being too glib about suffering is a type of evil that shouldn't exist on theism.
Yeah.
He said glibly. Even after you said all of that, I then made a meta joke about that, in which I was glib. Okay, let's escape this this infinite hierarchy of
glibness,
glibness, glibity,
glibaciousness.
If your definition of atheism is merely that it's a lack of belief in God and you're just waiting to be convinced, but then you speak of him as though he's in some way synonymous with Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, or fairies. Doesn't that at least send the message to your listeners that you actually believe that there is no God? After all, these are entities and beings that you likely believe do not exist. And if your response is that you merely lack a belief in Santa Claus and don't actively believe that he does not exist, doesn't that sound a little disingenuous, honestly?
Okay, what were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with him fully. It does sound disingenuous to me. Like, this is something that you hear. Like, speaking of leprechauns, like I remember listening to the Atheist Experience once, and Tracy Harris, who was like, oh, you know, I view God the same way I view like leprechauns or unicorns. And she's like, I'm not saying that to be rude. I'm trying to communicate to you, like, psychologically how it seems to me, like how it feels for me when I'm talking about God. And it's like, okay, so she's reporting her psychological states. But imagine someone who, I don't know if she's a lacktheist or not, but like, imagine someone who says something like that. Seems like the kind of thing a viewer of the Atheist Experience might say. And then they go, oh, no, I don't think it's not the case that God exists. Like, I don't think it is not the case that God exists, or it's the case that God doesn't exist. It's like, no, I just lack a belief in God. It's like, that's bullshit. That's not true. That's not an accurate reporting of your psychological states. So that's like one problem of like 7 that I have with lacktheism. You know, it just doesn't seem like it's true that I think what they're actually doing is they don't know how to make the case for atheism. That sounds hard. It sounds hard. Like they're not, you know, because they have all these other things in their head too. Like you can't prove a negative or whatever. And they're like, oh, I don't even know how I would go about giving evidence that something doesn't exist. Like that sounds hard. Maybe impossible, which it's not, but they're like, I don't know how to do that. So then they build up this like elaborate artifice of epistemology that's just like, well, the best argument for atheism is actually that all the arguments for theism fail, and you have the burden of proof because you're making the positive claim. And the only way to undermine this is if you give a randomized controlled scientific experiment that God exists, and that has not yet been done. So, ergo, I can be an atheist. And it's just like, yeah, I think all of that's confused. Like, that's really what all of this is coming down to. Like, why are they saying this thing that's not true? It's because they don't know how to give a positive case for atheism. That's why they're saying it. That's pretty much what it comes down to. But I have other problems with lacktheism too. But I'll pause and ask what you think about that.
Well, yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think it's, again, it's one of these ones where is it disingenuous? I don't know. It might be that there's a sort of collective confusion about the epistemology that's relevant to this. I think actually maybe one explanation is to do with remember how you were pointing out the two things about Christianity according to Emerson that might explain its rapid rise. One of them is exclusivity and the other one was evangelism. And it's true that Christianity, unlike other religions like Judaism, isn't exactly evangelical, or even Islam isn't trying to win you over necessarily, but or at least historically they were cool with you not converting necessarily, whereas the Christians are always trying to get you to believe the same thing that they are. And like, if that's the context in particular, you've got people knocking on your door, like, have you heard the good news, that type of thing. Well, they are like intruding on you, and if that's the sort of thing that's happening, then I think you can just be like, well, come on and prove it to me. What shoot your best shot and try and convince me. And if that's the kind of dialectical context, you can see how you'd lazily sort of get into thinking, all I have to do is not be convinced by what they're telling me, because he's the car salesman trying to get me to buy a car. I'm not trying to sell him a car. That's what's going on there. So it's kind of like they get confused in thinking that sort of, like they think that the explanation for that is to do with whether or not the claim is an existential quantification. There is a thing such that it's God or something, and because I'm not saying there is a thing such that it's God, I'm saying it's not the case that there is a thing such as God, that's what's actually driving whether or not you have to give an argument for it. And that's just completely mistaken. It's like the positive claim doesn't mean the existential quantification is like positive. It means that like you're saying something to someone. So if you're saying to someone, I don't believe or if I'm an atheist or something like that. If you're, well, in particular, it means like if you're having a conversation, like a back and forth, and at some point in the conversation, you might take the initiative and say, X, whatever that is. That's you now having a burden of proof or whatever. You have to substantiate the claim that you've just made, and it doesn't matter whether that claim is that something exists or that something does not exist. Right? It's just, are you at this point asserting something in the conversation? Because if you are, that's the burden of proof. That's all the burden of proof is. So yeah, I think they sort of confuse existential claims with burden of proof.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that before, but I mean, my issue with it is, my main issue with it is almost psychological. Like I said, I don't think they're accurately reporting their psychological states, and I think they do affirm a proposition that God doesn't exist. It seems that way from the outside to me, and I guess there's like a point of pride almost for me where I'm like, hey, you are saying you're an atheist, and someone says, why do you think that? You should be able to give some evidence. You should be able to give some arguments. You shouldn't just say like, well, you haven't convinced me that blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, can you really not make a case like for what you think? Like that's what bothers me the most about it. It's just like, like you should be able to do that. It's as Hugh Ross says, this is in the Bible. You should be able to, explain yourself. Like, why do you think that? Like, give me some arguments, like give me some evidence. And you can give evidence for atheism. We just did it in the first question, But yeah, I think people, they're kind of allergic to like reading anything ever about philosophy of religion. There are a lot of reasons for that, but if you read about like, oh, what's a good way to make a positive case for atheism, you could argue in defense of the hypothesis of indifference, because I'm pretty sure that entails atheism. So it's like, if you can, give some evidence that the universe appears indifferent to like good and evil and pain and pleasure, well, that's not compatible with theism. So like, you could give some evidence for that, and that's giving evidence for atheism. But yeah, I just feel like you should be able to explain yourself, like make a case for what you think. But
yeah,
I think there's there's some more boring but still salient worries about like choosing to define atheism like this, where it's like, hey, this is conceptually not leaving room for agnosticism, because agnostics lack a belief in God. But I think agnostics and atheists are different. Like it seems like it's out of step with ordinary language to say, oh, agnostic atheist, like, yeah, that makes sense. Like those can be, you can be an agnostic atheist. It's like, well, picture someone who says I'm an agnostic and picture someone who says I'm an atheist. Like, at least for me, I'm picturing two different people here. Like, I feel like when someone says I'm an agnostic and someone else says I'm an atheist, they are signaling different things about their beliefs and attitudes. So it seems kind of out of step to define atheism, to choose to define atheism in such a way that eliminates that distinction. It just kind of muddles it.
And not only that, things more confusing.
Yeah, it does seem to make things more like muddled and confusing. It's like, okay, so here are some other things that lack a belief in God. Babies, animals, all inanimate objects. That also, like, are those atheists too? And some people like Aaron Ra are just like, yep, rocks are atheists. It's like, that. Don't you feel like a fucking idiot right now saying that? Like, that you're applying this concept atheist to something that, it can't even form the relevant concepts to have an opinion on the question. And you're saying like all inanimate objects are atheists, like babies are atheists, animals are atheists, agnostics are atheists. Why don't you just define it in the way that, philosophers define it, and the way that it seems to be, because I don't think that the ordinary language stuff gives you a definition, but it seems to be used in such a way, these two concepts seem to be used in such a way that they don't have the same meaning, So like, yeah, I think there are a lot of issues with lacktheism, but I think that about sums it up. Like, yeah, I'm not a lacktheist. I've never been. And it's always been super confusing to me, like, why anyone is, well, I guess it's not that confusing. I think it's what I said it was. Like, people don't know how to give a positive case. I think that's, like, part of the reason why. That's my uncharitable psychoanalysis of why people are lacktheists. But
yeah, I used to think there's a confusion about like the nature of belief, and there's this confusion, there's sort of simplification that it's like a binary thing where you just believe or don't believe, or it's like convinced or not convinced or something. And it sort of brushes over the idea of like the strength or like degree of your belief that you might have. Like, I'm very strongly convinced of some things, I'm on the fence about other things, etc., etc. And just saying I lack a belief, what are you trying to convey? That you're right on the middle of that scale of belief and disbelief? Is that what you're saying? Because, and then I think Braxton's point is like well taken, because if that's what you're saying, you're just completely on the fence 50-50 about it, well, that's then, it's, you don't seem like that. A person who's like on the fence 50-50, they might still be worried about the prospect of hell, because to them it's 50-50. They might still go to church because they're thinking, I should maybe, keep up with this and just in case or whatever, right? Like, these atheist experience people are not like that. They're not going to church. They're not worried about hell. They're chilling like people who are convinced that God doesn't exist. So it just doesn't come across like just simply saying that you lack the belief. It's like, okay, you do lack the belief, but how far away on the other end of the scale are you? Right? You might be anywhere from in the middle to like really strongly convinced, not having a belief that God doesn't exist, but how much, not having a belief that God does exist, but like how far towards certain are you that he doesn't exist, right? Like, how much money would you bet on it? Like, what actions are you taking that like display that? So I just think he's right about that, honestly. It just seems like disingenuous, really. A bit like the grief thing. I mean, like, it's an action that's out of kilter with what you say you believe in.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, the belief thing is interesting because that is genuinely like a part where people miscommunicate sometimes, where sometimes they think belief requires faith, or like you see people saying things like, oh, I don't believe, I have evidence for it. And it's like, by belief, I just mean like you affirm the proposition. It's just like a mental state where you think something is the case. Like, that's all I mean. And I'm pretty sure that's pretty standard in epistemology. Like, there's no extra baggage to it. It's just, there's a proposition, you think it's the case. There's this other one, you think it's not the case. Like, that's all belief is. It's not anything over and above that. But yeah, no, I think we're in agreement on this point. It seems like when you're saying I lack a belief in God, it almost sounds like a lawyerly way of saying that you're an agnostic. Like, you're trying to like, but yeah, I think that we should have words for people who think it's the case that God doesn't exist, and for people who like suspend judgment on the question, or people who think the evidence is kind of like 50-50 or roughly so. And I think we do have words for that. So like, we shouldn't like muddle these concepts and be like, oh, I'm an agnostic atheist, or like an agnostic theist, or whatever. It's like, bro, why? Like, because I think what they're doing is like conceptual engineering, but they're like engineering the concept to be worse. They're like making it worse than it was, just like before they got here.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's true. And there's because theism is also a vague term, really. And what do you mean God, right? Like, there's loads of different types of God, and I mean, you could be an atheist in the sense that you have a completely uniform opinion about all of those potential categories. That kind of just indicates to me that you haven't really thought about it, because you just don't distinguish between those different hypotheses. And like, some of them are more plausible than others. So atheism might mean a sort of rejection in general, but that might still reveal nuances if you actually press somebody on it. So you might be very convinced that, I don't know, Mormonism isn't true, but less convinced that, I don't know, Catholicism isn't true. Isn't true.
For me, right? It's like the opposite.
Okay.
It's the inverse of that.
Well, exactly. There you go. So there's subtlety to it, isn't there? And like, you might be like a deist and think there is some kind of first cause, but don't think that any of the Christian stories are true, or something. So even then, like, atheism feels like it's got more nuance in it, and just sort of coarse graining it into just simply a lack of belief in one thing is sort of overly simplified in like lots of different dimensions at the same time that makes it seem disingenuous to me too. Anyway, we're still only on the second question, so let's keep going. We've got another 8 questions here.
I'm going to turn off my camera for a second, but I have my headphones in, so I can still hear everything.
Sure. So, yeah.
When atheism becomes a part of someone's worldview, they typically change their positions on other issues like abortion, sexual morality, and a number of other things. I actually have several videos of well-known atheists saying that there's nothing wrong with prostitution, that they hope their children don't save themselves until marriage, and that sex workers should be put up on a pedestal no different than the military. I didn't use those here because I didn't want to seem combative to individuals, specifically the individuals who made those statements. But even if you didn't become an atheist just so you could sin, and I believe you, do you at least understand why those moves could send that message to people who might say that to you?
Okay, so he's saying now that when people become atheist, they often don't just change that one belief, but they change lots of beliefs about other things as well. And he also said, you might say that you're not just doing it so that you can, I don't know, have those beliefs. And he says, and I believe you. And I don't believe him then when he's saying that he believes that person. I think he doesn't believe them. But at least he's saying it to sort of not have that conversation. I'm not sure. I'm kind of confused about this one, but it's not my experience. So I didn't go from being a Christian to being an atheist. So I didn't change my mind about that. So I didn't then change my mind about other things either. But maybe that's right that you grew up in a sort of Christian household. So you were a believer at some point, right? And then you changed your mind. So maybe you can talk more directly to this one than I can.
Yeah. I mean, he said he didn't want to call out people for saying that we should respect sex workers the same as veterans, but I need some receipts on that because I'm skeptical. I mean, maybe someone did say that. It sounds insane to me, but I don't know what that's about, where it's the people who stormed the beaches at Normandy and taking pictures of your asshole for $4.99 a month on OnlyFans. Who the fuck is saying those are the same thing? Anyway, I want to know who said that, but
there's a super fan of some description.
But I mean, it is true that atheists tend to change politically. I mean, people like me who go from Christian to atheist. It's your beliefs kind of change. Sometimes it's temporary, sometimes it's permanent, but it's there are certain things that don't really have good secular arguments going for them. So it's pretty much universal that when you go from thinking gay marriage is, that should be illegal, you're a Christian, and then you become an atheist, pretty much everybody is okay with gay marriage who becomes an atheist because the secular arguments for it are not good, so that's a change that often happens. But, there are other things that I think he's kind of actually alluding to, which is sexual degeneracy or something, something along those lines. And it's he's saying, okay, I'm not saying you became an atheist so you could sin, but it seems like some of you get really close to almost admitting that in a way. And it's I think what's actually going on is that you deconvert, there are certain guardrails that aren't there anymore. Or you don't see, even if there are good secular reasons to, not sleep around or go crazy on Tinder or whatever, which I think there are, but a lot of people don't see them. Then it's I can kind of see what he's saying, but I think it's more you become an atheist and then you find out, oh, hey, there are some benefits to being an atheist. There are things you can do as an atheist that you can't really do as a Christian, or at least not in good conscience. And it's more a benefit of atheism than the reason people are converting, in the same way that it's if someone tried to say, well, you're just a Christian because you're afraid of death and you don't want to say goodbye to your friends and loved ones forever and ever. It's I don't think that's true. If you're looking at the causal history of how people become Christians, I think it's very implausible that people are just afraid of death and then they end up constructing this whole thing. It's okay, but it is a benefit of Christianity that you get to believe there's an afterlife, and like everyone you love is gonna live, and all the people who you hate are gonna go to hell. It's like, all, you know, those are benefits of believing in Christianity. And but I don't think it's why they believe in Christianity, but there is like a striking correlation between, you know, being a Christian and believing those things. But it's wrong to say that it, like, you know, it's the reason, or like it's part of the causal history or something. And I think it's the same thing with atheism and some of the stuff that he's like sort of alluding to, but not saying explicitly, where it's like, yeah, these are like benefits of no longer being constrained by a religious worldview, quote unquote. But I don't think it's why people are deconverting. And plus, I think there are good reasons to, you know, only have sex with people who you love and things of that sort. But but you know, like I think I get what he's saying, but yeah, I don't think that's why people deconvert.
Yeah, I think there's some very American lens that this question's coming through, that I also find it hard to sort of put myself in that frame of mind. But, you know, I'm thinking of this sort of parody of the other way round. You know, imagine I was saying, when people, you know, sometimes when people convert from atheism to Christianity, they then, I don't know, and pick some aspect of conservative Christian contemporary American life, like get really into gun culture or something. It's like, I'm not saying that you just decided to become Christian it's so that you could then shoot loads of guns, but it is something to be explained. Like, how come everyone who becomes Christian gets super into gun culture or something? Like, it just feels like, I don't know that correlation really holds. I mean, yeah, conservative culture and liberal culture, or whatever, they are like two worlds in America, like two halves of the egg or something. They can like completely distinct almost. They have different opinions on every issue. And no doubt Christianity and atheism lands in these two halves as well. So like, in a way, it's just a bit like the sort of thing you'd expect in a massively polarized culture like America right now. But if you change allegiances, you basically adopt all of the views that the other side has when you do that, and it's kind of bizarre. But I kind of blame Fox News or something for that. It's not even really a religious question. It's kind of just, you guys were horrifically, half of the country, well, but maybe all of them, is kind of horrifically brainwashed in one of two directions, right?
Yeah, I would say all of them, not half of them. But yeah, it's like, you know, there's this association with Christianity and like conservative politics. And then when people become atheists, they start questioning everything. And then, you know, they like end up slingshotting to the other side. You know, they go from being libertarian to a Marxist or something. And it's like, you know, I think when you calm down a little bit, it's like you're going to, you know, like you see it in reverse too. Like there are some atheists who are increasingly like right wing. And then they start like talking like religious people, or like they're even, you know, going to church, or like trying to take Pascal's wager or something, because they're so committed to the right wing like political project. Even though they're atheists, they're like trying almost to like talk themselves back into religion in a certain sense. It doesn't really work, but they're like, they kind of like pretend that it's real in a certain sense, but it has more to do with their politics than their actual beliefs, you know? So like I spend way too much time on Twitter, like, you know, scrolling through like these, you know, like right-wing accounts and everything, and like half of them are atheists, you know, but like you wouldn't know it from the way they talk about religion and atheists and stuff. But then every once in a while it comes out that like, oh, this guy's an atheist, that guy's an atheist, this other guy's an atheist. Anyway, it's just kind of interesting. Like, yeah, I think it might be a uniquely American thing where it's like there's this, you know, religious and political connection to things where people just feel uncomfortable being like, yeah, I'm an extremely right-wing atheist, or like, you know, it's like it just comes as a package, you know. It feels like it's not even your choice. People feel pulled into religion, you know, when they're more on the right.
Yeah, and I think the typical experience in the UK is much more like, you don't really know what someone's religious views are. You can't really tell from the outside, and they might never mention it. Like my experience in the philosophy department where I did my master's and my PhD, I was really surprised one evening after being there for years with someone saying, oh, this guy, he's Catholic. And I was like, what the fuck, that guy? It's like a logic guy, you know, and I'd never heard him speak anything about religion. And he's religious. Okay, it just never came up. And we'd had all these discussions about, you know, like loads of discussions, but this sort of thing had come up, but you couldn't tell from the outside because there was no real particular correlation between him being Catholic and him. You know, you couldn't then go, oh, he's Catholic, that means he's definitely going to be pro-life, and he's definitely going to be pro-gun, and he's definitely going to be anti-homosexual, blah, 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 like you can in America. He just made his own mind up about all of those things, like everybody did. So you could have been an atheist and right-wing, or an atheist and left-wing. It didn't really... I think that's true anyway. And I think this sort of division is maybe exaggerated, or maybe it's just what it's like in America, but it doesn't really ring that true to me.
Interesting. Anyway. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it might be a totally cultural thing, because they are connected in my mind. But I mean, there are some things that are like obviously connected, like the gay marriage example.
Well, is it? But, I mean, is there that much in the Bible about homosexuality? There's a couple of things.
There's certainly nothing positive said about homosexuality, and anyone who wants to defend it has to like go through all these backflips, these like exegetical hoops and whatnot. Like the Bible, I mean, like every time it comes up, it's not positive, you know.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, but then I don't know. I thought Jesus was like quite open-minded, and doesn't he let like a prostitute wash his feet, and he's all about tolerance and stuff. But they don't like any of that. It's like if Jesus was around now, he would be like, you know, persecuting people, and so it seems like a completely different character if he sort of hates minorities. I just don't. Well, I don't know.
I mean, he wasn't endorsing prostitution. He was just like, you know, showing love to someone who everyone hates. And, you know, I don't, he actually did say some stuff about minorities in the Bible that was, he called like some ethnic minority dogs or something in the Bible.
Oh,
like
okay.
he might have, but this was on display a little bit when, did you see the Nick Fuentes Piers Morgan debate?
I saw some clips from it. Yeah, I didn't watch the whole thing.
I mean, ostensibly they're both Catholic, but it's like the things they were disagreeing on, you know, like, because Nick is a virgin, like he's waiting until marriage to have sex, and like Piers Morgan was making fun of him for that, like as a Catholic, and it's just like, that's what you're supposed to do. Like, that's what, like most Christians don't do that because it sucks, but like he's just doing the thing you're supposed to do as a Catholic. But Piers Morgan was like relentlessly mocking him for that. But they're both Catholic, you know. But there were a few other things like that too, where, you know, there's this British Catholic who's like, yeah, I don't really give a fuck about any of the things the Catholic Church teaches, but I'm a Catholic. And then, you know, Nick is very like down the line, like accepts what they say. But yeah, I don't know if that's part of it too. But
all right, we could keep talking about that for ages. So let's move on to the next question. What is this question for?
If it's a lack of belief sort of atheism, what is it? Is it 50-50, 60-40, 75-25? And at what point do you feel disingenuous saying that you merely lack a belief, as opposed to leaning towards, I believe that God does not exist?
You know, I think we've talked about that one a lot.
Yeah, we basically already covered that. Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's just keep going then.
Now, I know we've all got our talking points, but I want you to struggle to be as sincere with yourself as you can right now. Doesn't it bother you a little bit that when we come to talk about the origins of the universe, and if there's a multiverse, the origin of that too, that the only real options you've got besides God is a past infinite universe, which is impossible, or the universe coming to exist uncaused out of nothing, or something far less clear than even those? It seems that for any worldview that includes atheism, there's a massive blind spot when it comes to the origin of the universe. And all the attempts to try and circumvent that problem seem desperate and at least far less likely than theism. My question isn't just what do you typically say about this, because I'm well aware of the responses. My question is this: when you step away from the debate mode that it's so easy for us all to get into online, doesn't this issue destabilize you a little bit? It seems to fit really poorly with any worldview that includes atheism.
Alex, why don't you address cosmological arguments? You've never talked about this.
It's true. I do not live up to the burden of proof on this one. Yeah, personally wounded with him saying that stuff about you've only got two options, right? It's either past eternal, that's impossible, or it comes out of nothing. Yeah, so obviously I disagree about the past eternal stuff. That I don't think there's any particularly good, at least like a priori argument that says the universe couldn't be eternal. So it just seems like it could be, in which case I'm not sure what the beef is supposed to be there. But I think he's phrasing the question wrong. I mean, you know, I think I could grumble a bit about like what the theistic explanation is supposed to be, because you know, sometimes you hear this like they're saying, you know, the atheist has to say the universe popped out of nothing, you know, and as if what you're supposed to do is explain literally like a philosophical nothing giving rise to concrete material. And that's kind of weird. And then you get someone like Lawrence Krauss, and he was like, oh, what if there's, you know, quantum physics and randomness or whatever that you can have in quantum physics, then if that's what nothingness is, kind of quantum vacuum or something, then the universe could pop out of it, right? And then theists will go, that's not nothing, though. It's something. It's quantum physics or whatever. So what you have to do is explain it coming literally out of nothing and into something. You go, okay, well, what's the story on the other side? How does that work then? And they say, well, God made it. And it's just like, well, so it's not, you don't have to explain it coming out of nothing. You're allowed to have some pre-existing stuff that does the creation. Well, isn't that a double standard? I mean, why can't, I don't really like Lawrence Krauss. I think he's a horrible person, and I don't, you know, whatever. It's something a bit weird about thinking there's a quantum vacuum on its own or something, but like, you're just like the Christian is helping himself to some pre-existing stuff that's got the ability to make something out of nothing. And that just also seems like this exactly, why can't I worry about why that's the case? Where did God come from? How come there's a God? Just saying it's necessary. It's like, if you were worried about that sort of existentially, it was troubling you, and someone just said, well, maybe there's a necessary thing that makes everything, I just think you're still going to go, but maybe there isn't, you know. I'm still left with this worry, and like both sides just have the same resources. You know, I could just say maybe there's a necessary thing, call it a quantum state, maybe the universe is eternal, whatever. That's all they're doing. So like, I think both sides have an existential worry that they could like worry about, basically. And so I don't know, I'm not seeing the asymmetry even. What do you think?
Well, I'm struggling to be sincere right now, and we all have our talking points, but, you know, I mean, I think that this is like something that I, at least personally, am bound to be mystified by like forever. And it doesn't matter if I believe in God or not. Like the weirdness doesn't go away by just saying like, oh, well, there's a God. It's like, yeah, that doesn't help. Like, I mean, you know, sometimes people use the analogy of like, there's a lump in the carpet, you press it down, it just comes up somewhere else. Like, that's how I feel about the origins of, you know, everything. Like, why does existence exist or whatever? It's like, yeah, it's always going to seem weird. It seems like if there was ever a place to be a Mysterian, like, this would be it, because it's going to be weird, like, no matter what. And at least to me, like, you know, maybe other people are way smarter and they can figure it out. It's like, no problem. But for me, I feel like a dog trying to understand, you know, the same question. Like, I remember Dale Allison said this to me. He's like, I don't think that when it comes down to it, we're all that different from, like, dogs. And, like, trying to understand questions like this, you know, just how it's so obvious to us that, like, yeah, there are certain things a dog is never going to understand because it's a dog. You know, it's constrained by its physical and biological nature. We're not, like, it's not going to understand certain things. And that's probably also true of us, you know. And if you had to identify certain areas where this might be relevant, it seems like, why is there something rather than nothing, or, you know, cosmological arguments? That might be, you know, a pretty plausible place to think, yeah, it's always going to seem weird. You're never going to totally get rid of the weirdness. There's no non-weird option available. But, you know, so I mean, to answer the question, it's like, yeah, I am mystified by it. Like, it is super strange. Like, but it doesn't keep me up at night, I guess, because it's not like I'm trying to figure out which one of these weird options I'm going to end up sticking with at all costs, avoiding the only non-weird option, which is that, you know, God exists and, you know, he did it. It's like, no, the weirdness is always going to be there no matter what. And I've, you know, sometimes I've come to terms with that, and sometimes it bothers me. But, you know, when it comes to like the Kalam specifically, I could go either way on either premise. Like, I have no idea if the universe began to exist. It might have. It might not have. Like, does everything that begins to exist have a cause? Like, maybe that, like, it seems like the kind of thing I could be wrong about, like, very easily. So I lean towards the universe not having a cause, for one reason or another. But, like, then you get to the stage 2 arguments, which, it's widely recognized those are garbage. And it's like, there's a reason William Lane Craig spends all his time talking about the 2 premises and, like, just kind of hand waves, when it comes to the second stage where you actually show that, like, the cause of the universe is God or has, like, several divine attributes or something. So even though I think it's possible the universe has a cause, you still have a lot of work to do to show that it's a, like, divine cause or that it's God or a particular type of God. And I'm not saying anything, like, original here. It's just, this is what I think about the argument. I'm not just, like, giving talking points. Like, it's so hard for me to be honest about this. But it's like, no, I'm mystified by the question of why something exists. I wouldn't believe you if you said you weren't. And, like, I wouldn't really believe you if you said, well, I believe in God, so there's no problem here at all. It's like, yeah, it's mysterious no matter what.
Yeah.
And, I think maybe I'm a dog trying to understand a question I'm just never going to get the answer to. So I'm going to, like, allocate my resources towards things that I can plausibly, like, solve and, get an answer to.
Yeah, and I think there's this, like that, I completely agree with that, the Allison idea and that kind of embrace of mystery, of existential kind of wonder or whatever. And it seems like a healthy way to approach stuff. And actually, once you start thinking about it like that, there seems something kind of like pathological or something with some types of. I think this is a thing about apologetics rather than religion in particular, because there's lots of religious approaches which are mysterious in their attitude too. They embrace the mystery and don't try and, like, explain everything. But some types of apologetics make it seem like, well, all the answers are there. I just have all the answers to everything. There is no mystery left, because in my worldview, why is this, that? Oh, because of this thing. That's the pattern of reasoning for everything. It just feels like a desperately suppressive approach to life. I kind of just want to, like, flip the question around and be like, don't you think it's a bit weird that you don't have any sense of, like, cosmic wonder in your life? You think all of the answers have been presented to you, like, Christ, how depressing that would be to live like that. There's nothing left to ponder about. All the answers are available to you. That just feels like a kind of, you're a product of brainwashing or something. Like, there's some reason why you're suppressing that sense of wonder, that you have to have answers to everything. Isn't that weird? I'd be questioning that about myself if I didn't let myself have any questions. Right? I would find that it would keep me up at night. Why aren't I terrified at the mystery of reality? There's something wrong with me that I'm so, like, comfortable with existence. That's it. So it goes the other way around. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just a bit weird or something, but I kind of don't want to know all the answers.
Yeah. I mean, it sort of inspires, like, an equal and opposite glibness, you might say, like, in atheists who are also like, oh, there's no mystery here. There's nothing weird about it at all. And it's like, It's part of why I don't like Christian apologetics, like the effects it has on atheists. Like, I think it makes atheists worse. But yeah, it's like, this is an example of that, where you have some extremely overconfident Christian apologists who act like there's no mystery when it comes to the origin of the universe. And then it's like, and then it makes atheists be like, well, I have to match that energy, like, I have to, I have to be just as confident. I have to be, and I just think that's bad. I think that it's better to explore things, it's better to have, like, a different kind of attitude, a more, like, an exploratory, philosophical attitude about some of these questions, instead of, like, an apologetics sort of approach,
Yeah, because the apologist is fundamentally, not all religious people are apologists, obviously most of them are not. The apologist is hard selling you, they're upselling you their religious perspective. So obviously they're the type of people who are going to say, oh, no, don't worry about the wheels on this car, they're great. Oh, what about the chassis? Oh, that's also great, don't worry about that. They've got an explanation for all of it, Anyway, I'm not sure I'm going to have enough time to really finish this, because we've still got several questions left, and I think I have to go to bed in a minute. I think also my wife I can hear her going to bed. Like we're currently living in a really small flat, so like I'm aware that I'm going to be starting to become annoying, and I probably shouldn't do that. So what I might do, if you don't mind, is sort of have a look at the questions and see if there's any chat that we might want to like engage with.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we've been going for 2 hours. That's plenty. We don't have to finish the questions.
Is. I don't even remember what other questions came up. Now, how do I... Okay, yeah. Public chat. Part 2, somebody said. Possibly we could do a part 2 on this, couldn't we?
Yeah, no, I'd be fine with that, too. I mean, I feel like we're almost...
On your channel.
There's like, what, 4 more questions?
Yeah. I can't... I mean, I'm pretty sure I now have super chats available, which for some reason weren't working previously. And so if anyone has actually paid money to ask a question, I should probably... someone says, Emerson Green is my queen, which is nice.
Thank you. You're my loyal subject. I rule over you with an iron fist.
You can see the chat as well, I think, in the studio.
Okay, yeah, no, I see it. I don't know what any of these mean. They seem to be responding to things that we said. I just see it. I'm a panpsychic, though, so I don't need a horseman effigy when there's decoherence. If you know, you know. I have nothing to add to that.
Dux Y says, ew, about something. I don't know what. All right, I'm going to go ahead and say there are no questions. In which case, we should probably then just wrap up the stream. But I wanted to say it was really fun and really great talking to you. So if you ever need someone to talk about cosmological arguments in a glib way, then I'd be happy to do that on your channel.
I know, this is something I've wanted to do forever. I've told you like multiple times, like, oh, can you come on? We'll talk about like the Kalam or something. And then the thing is, like, like I said, it's a struggle, to be honest, and to not just give talking points. But I was actually being honest when I'm saying that, like, no, I'm kind of a Mysterian about this. Like, I don't know the answer. Like, it feels almost like futile to try to really get an answer to this. But there's so much to talk about. But the cosmological argument has never been like the argument that gripped me for God. It's always been more like design arguments. And the thing is, like, virtually all the smart people I know are into cosmological arguments, and like they're like, oh, that's the best one, and so I guess I'm just too dumb to appreciate why that's the best one. But I've like thought the least, like, of the major arguments for God, that's probably the one I've thought the least about, alongside the ontological argument. But
my only contribution to the field is complaining about what other people say in favor of it. So I'm not saying anything positive. I'm just saying, no, that can't be right, and this doesn't work, or whatever. So I think it's fully compatible with basically any view, like an agnostic or anything. You're just saying, William Lane Craig or Andrew Locke's argument or whatever, it doesn't work. So I think it's compatible with your perspective, the grumbling that I do about it.
Well, Andrew Loke is going to be in the comment section now of this video because you mentioned him one time, leaving unhinged.
Yeah, that was my first mistake. All right, cool, nice one. So yeah, let's wrap this up. Really great, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun. I don't know why I said actually. It was a lot of fun. I was expecting it to be fun, and it was fun. So thank you for having me.
Good.